right, guys. I am super excited for this interview we're doing here today with Bethany Faden from Be the Boss Dog Training. Bethany and I have been working together for about 3 months now, and the growth in her business has just been astonishing to watch and be a part of. So, Bethany, why don't you just kind of kick it off for everybody? Tell everyone a little bit about yourself and how you got started as a dog trainer.
Yeah, so I'm Bethany, and I got started in the fall of 2016. I decided to leave my corporate job, and then I had time to train my own dogs. I had 2 dogs, and one of them was aggressive. And luckily I found an amazing trainer who is also part of this group.
Shout out Sarah Baker.
Yeah, Sarah Baker.
Yeah.
And I sent my German Shepherd to the board and train. And then I worked with my other dog at home. And I found myself extremely passionate about dog training. And by passionate, I mean, Sarah was like, I'll work on the dog if you work on yourself.
Right, exactly.
And that really appealed to me, the challenge and the goal. And so anyways, I started working with my dog at home, and I found I was really passionate about it. And was my first introduction to really formal dog training. And from there, Sarah actually sent my German Shepherd home early because I was such a dedicated client.
Gold star student, just like you are with me.
And then I've always kind of been a go-getter, and I was like, I love this. I can do this. And so I started training for free. I started shadowing Sarah. And then I started fostering. I joined a rescue organization and started fostering dogs in my home. And that's kind of how I built my skill set as a dog trainer. That's kind of how I got started. And then as time went on, I just adjusted my program and my prices according to my skill set.
Oh, sweet. So it's funny. So Sarah essentially hit you with like what every dog trainer wants to say to their clients, like, hey, you need to do the work as well, right?
Yeah. So it was a 2-hour consultation call.
Mm-hmm.
And if I remember correctly, a few tears were shed on my end.
Yep. There you go.
And I was in a very raw state because it's very traumatic to have an aggressive dog and to witness dog fights and to be at the point where it's either put your dog down or train your dog. And that's where I was at.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So for you though, like you didn't have the traditional route, which I know a lot of trainers take, which is like going to like an actual school and stuff like that, right? You kind of just learned like on the job by shadowing Sarah and stuff like that.
Yeah, I started shadowing Sarah, and I gained a whole new respect for like trade school work, and I gained a whole new respect for experience. I'd always grew up, graduate high school, go to college, get that piece of paper, work at a job, and everything will be fine and dandy. And that's that's not how my life turned out at all.
Right, exactly.
I'm probably not alone in that.
Not at all. Yeah.
And it was a whole new experience, and it was a whole new world that boosted my confidence and made me realize I was capable of learning. I was capable of learning quickly. And as long as I was willing to work hard, I could accomplish it.
Right. Exactly. So I just love that story. Like, I love that about you, that you just kind of saw an opportunity. You were like, hey, I can do this. And you didn't sit there going like, well, I don't have the money to do it. I don't have the money to go to school. I don't have the time to do it or whatever. You like had a job, right? And you just kind of like decided like, hey, here's somebody who's willing to work with me. I'm willing to learn for free, work for free, and just kind of just learn a new skill set.
Yeah. And maybe I was lucky in the sense that at my previous job where I was an executive assistant and project manager, there was consolidation, and they gave me the opportunity to find another position I was qualified for, or to leave with a severance package.
Oh, yeah.
And I was so tired of the corporate world and exhausted, and that I was like, I'll take the severance package and go. And that was really scary at the time. I talked to my husband and I was like, I know we can make our bills, but are you okay with this? And we kind of took that leap into the dark. And it wasn't like I was leaping into the dark to go to dog training. I didn't even have that on the radar at the time. I just knew that something had to change. I didn't know what. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, like, you're an awesome entrepreneur. Like, you've proven that. Like, just as soon as we started working together, within the first week, I knew that, like, this was going to be just like right up your alley, all of this. And that probably is part of why I would say you probably felt like that difficulty going into work every single day, and you felt burnt out doing that, right? Is because, like, that you're capable of more. That this is not scratching that itch of, like, what you want to do with your life. But I just, I commend you, because I think a lot of people stay in jobs and do things for way too long that they don't want to do, just because they let the fear of the unknown, rule their life.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing if you have obligations. I just feel like, for me, everything came together, and then I was willing to, I had somebody like Sarah who pushed me to confront the scary and the unknown.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also, like, was able to set an example for you. So you had like a model laid out there, and you saw somebody in your area who you could relate to doing something. And that has a big influence, and who
is very, not just that, because there's lots of dog trainers in my area, but who is kind.
Yes. Yeah. We love Sarah here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, she's one of these people who just, like, seems to always want to be giving back to the community, and everybody always just has nothing but the best things to say about her. Because the first time we got connected, we were talking about her business, and then we didn't actually end up working together. But, through her, I've gotten connected with this just amazing network of dog trainers. And for whatever reason, I just have, like, a disproportionate amount of people I work with in Utah. I don't know what that's all about, but it is destined that I'm just going to move there. Yeah, exactly. So, hey, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about, like, what you were doing before you and I started working together? Like, what was your business like at that point?
Do you want to start right before we met, or from when I first started my business? So why don't you
just kind of give everyone, like, a brief overview of, like, when you started, what your expectations were, what you had kind of been told about, like, how you got clients, how you sold clients, how you charged, all of that.
Okay. So speaking about when I first started charging for clients, this is after for free after the rescue business. So I had been bullied severely previously. So everybody knows my confidence was just shot. It was so horrible. We can go over that later if you want to, but I literally started out posting in my neighborhood Facebook groups, and I was like, for $25, I'll teach your dog how to walk nicely. And that was in 2017.
Yeah.
And I, like, people responded, and I helped people teach their dogs how to walk nicely. And that was for $25.
$25, yeah.
And it was just single people,
right?
Like, literally one lesson, and then I never saw them again. So it was literally dipping my toes in the water.
Right. And just so everybody knows, like, Bethany's still using a very similar strategy to that, but just making about 100 times what she was making before doing that. But go on. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was still shadowing Sarah. And so once my confidence got built up and I was like, oh, I survived, like, I didn't get eaten alive out there, and people are seeing that I have something that they want. Then I started, I started charging like $250 My business model has changed a lot over the years, so I'm just trying to remember as best I can.
Right.
I was charging like $250 for day training, where they would drop their dogs off once a week from like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I would work with the dog and record it for social media content, and then I'd give them a go home lesson when they picked the dog up.
Right.
And there was either 3 or 4 of those lessons, and it was basics, crate, place, and walk nicely. And that's kind of, so I started from free to $25 for single lessons to more of a program-based model.
Which is key. I mean, just even making that switch is so key, right? Like it just allows you to just earn so much more, not selling one-off lessons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also to let yourself be successful, because single lessons, people might walk away saying, well, I didn't get much out of it. Right. So it helped my clients see that I could achieve good results over a period of time.
Right.
And I was living in a townhome at the time, like a 900 square foot, like 1 room, 2 stories.
Right.
And I had 2 dogs of my own, so space was limited, and I did the best I could with what I had. And it was great. I was feeling successful. It was a brand new experience for me to have an idea and implement it and then be successful. And all of it was me.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing to have a dream and then bring it to fruition, you know, like not everybody, I was going to say everybody can do that. That's like a really unique thing that human beings can do, but like you really got to have, everyone can do it, but you need to have the mindset and actually to, you know, to the ability to actually follow through and really dream something up and then bring it into, you know, our reality. So it's,
well, and I didn't understand like everything you just said right there. I'm understanding it more now, but I didn't even understand that at the time. All I knew was that I love doing this and I'm going to keep doing it until I figure it out.
Right. Man, that is such like a powerful, just like skill to have, you know, persistence. Like so many people give up way too quickly. You know, the first thing doesn't work and then you just go like, oh, the whole thing doesn't work. Just, and you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, you know, instead of going like, I see other people in this area doing this. I just have to crack the code on how to make it work for myself.
Well, and I think the biggest thing, you know, without going into too much detail, is I was not raised this way. I was not raised with confidence. I was not raised with, you can do this. I was raised the exact opposite. So I'm still trying to figure out where that drive came from. And Kevin, maybe you've worked with more people than I have, but I honestly, to this day, I'm still trying to figure out where that came from. But all I know is that human beings are so unique. We can obtain that even if we weren't raised that way.
Absolutely. And it's so funny, guys, because when Bethany and I meet on our coaching calls, like we end up talking way more about philosophy than, and then at the end, it's like, okay, like 2 minutes here of like practical, tactical things you can do in your business. But like, you know, like 45 minutes to an hour of just like life philosophy. And, you know, we laugh about that. But the truth is like mindset is a huge part of this. And I know it can kind of sound like very woo-woo and just kind of like an abstract concept or something like that. But if your mindset isn't right first, and you don't believe that in what you're trying, you don't believe that you can actually accomplish what you're looking to accomplish, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy and it's never going to happen. And to your point, real quick. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I hated people like me and you.
Yeah, those people
get
suck.
On calls like this and be like, it's mindset, and just
think
about it, because I hated that, because I felt so stuck and I hadn't learned that. And so I think it's okay to feel angry if you don't understand it. And if you hate people like us who keep saying this, I think that's okay. I was able to turn all that anger and channel it into well, I'll prove them wrong.
Yes.
And channel that anger and channel that drive into a healthy outlet.
I couldn't agree more. Like I feel the same way when I was first getting started out in running my first business. And even sometimes like today, when you hear people that are like light years ahead of you, right? Like someone who's running $1 million business or a $10 million business, and they're talking about like, their morning routine of like waking up at 5 a.m. and then like doing a cold plunge and then, you know, like whatever else, like you're like, oh, come on, you know, like this just isn't practical stuff. So yeah, I don't ever want to come across like there's not like practical things. And if you just meditate for an hour in the morning, like that's going to make you a billionaire. But what I will say is that to kind of touch on your point from before, we all have standards that are set for us, like from our parents and like our childhood and our lives up until this point, right? So our standards, like we'll settle for things, right? And so if you're raised in an environment where the standard is like you live in like a really kind of like, say like an upper class neighborhood, like you're more than likely going to try and like, that's your standard, like that's what you're shooting for. And the same thing goes the other way, right? So if you're told your entire life, you'll never achieve more than this, or like, hey, you need to play it safe and like, and you live a certain way and, you know, don't always be like striving for more. It's just going to unfold that way. So you need to break that. It's generational and, you know, like you have to break that cycle. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it.
So let's talk some more about like right before the time we started working together. Cause I remember the first call we had together, you were talking about kind of reshaping everything and potentially going online. And we were talking about marketing and, you know, you were talking about more about Instagram and I was like, hey, why don't you look into Facebook? So why don't you take everybody through like what your thought process was and where you were in your business right before we got started together?
Yeah. So a few weeks before I called Kevin up to the point where I talked to Kevin, you for the first time, my prices were about $1,200 a package.
Mm-hmm.
And that was I was having people come to me, and it was for 4 lessons, 1 per week. And it was create, place, walking nicely, and recall. So basic stuff and with the tools that I use as well.
Right.
So we were getting dogs off leash trained. And
wow,
I was to the point where I felt like I was butting my head up against a brick wall. I was hitting a financial limit to what I was charging and what I was capable of. I was only capable, even if I had packed myself out, I was only capable of like, you know, I was only making about $2,000 a month, but I was capable, but even if I had booked myself out, I would have only been capable of like $4,000 or $5,000 a month.
Right. If the stars aligned, right? Just because the way your business was set up and the marketing at the time and the sales process at the time.
Yeah. Just literally the structure of it was limiting me.
Right. Exactly.
And, so that's where I was at. And then I was feeling the same feeling I felt like kind of when you hit you're climbing a corporate ladder and you hit that ceiling.
Yep.
And you're like, am I going to be doing this for the next 20 years? Like there has to be a better way.
Right.
And the main thing that made me reach out to Kevin was I had done a lot of internal work with my mindset. I had gone to a lot of therapy and I had actually believed that I could do more. So that's kind of what started it.
Right.
But that's where I was at with my program and pricing. And then I was just like, it wasn't burnout. It was frustration. There has to be something better.
Right.
There has to be a better way. And I had no idea. That was the first time I'd even had that thought in my life.
Right.
That there was something better and that I deserved something better too.
Right. Yeah.
And then I'm a relatively new homeowner and I've found the benefit of hiring experienced people to help.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And since I'm a do-it-myselfer, I broke our garage door. I broke our refrigerator. And so I started learning that I was like, okay, oh my gosh, like there are things out there that I don't know. And it is worth paying people to help because it's worth it. It's worth the money.
Exactly. I mean, that's the way, I pay for, programs and stuff like that to just learn the skill set and gain the knowledge all the time, because you can struggle for decades, you know what I mean? Trying to figure it out on your own. And I think it's like the curse of the entrepreneur is like something is motivating you and you feel like I'm supposed to be able to figure this out on my own. But let me tell you something, if you can just, transfer the knowledge and it's like, you know, you take a course or you get some mentorship, you meet with a coach or something like that. And like, you can just upload like a chip, like you're plugging a chip into your brain, you upload that software and all of a sudden they give you a different way of looking at things, a different way of doing things. It can just fast forward you, you know, what would have taken decades all of a sudden, like in a couple months.
Yeah. It's like legal cheating. The
Right.
answer is right in front of you and it's not illegal. You can literally download them from somebody else's brain.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, you were kind of feeling just like that there has to be a better way of doing this. And you were trying to figure it out on your own for a little while. So you and I got connected. And I remember you telling me that you were like, hey, I don't want to go crazy. I just want to make like 4 or 5K a month. Right. And then
good old days, Kevin.
Yeah, exactly. 4 or 5K a month. And then you very quickly realized, like very soon after we started, like, whoa, that 4 to 5K is
I made in like 1 week.
Yeah, exactly. Like very quickly. Yeah. So why don't you tell everyone, if you don't mind, just like what your experience has been like since we started working together?
Yeah. So some things that pop out to me are using Facebook. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to become one of those annoying people on Facebook.
Right.
and I was like, I did have that feeling, but I was to the point where I was like, might as well try it. Everything else I've tried isn't working. So, and I didn't feel like I had anything to lose, right? Like, who am I going to annoy? People that I never see?
Right, exactly.
So, what surprised me was learning that not everybody is me. And I know that sounds really obvious.
Yeah.
But like, I'm the type of person that's like, leave me the heck alone unless I specifically come and ask for something. So like me, I grew up on the East Coast. I'm very abrasive and blue collar and say it how it is. And so like, whenever I go on Google, I never click the ads on Google because I'm like,
scam.
They're scam and they're paying for that. I want to see what you can accomplish on your own. So I don't click on ads. When people promote their businesses on Facebook, I scroll right past because I'm like, excuse me, sorry. I'm like, you can't make it in the real world. So now you're scrounging for business on Facebook. So I had this like really, and I think it's just culture. It's not a bad attitude. It's just like very hard-nosed. All my ancestors came over to start in a new world, and you have to become very vigilant about scams and all that stuff. So anyways. Yeah,
and also like don't rock the boat, don't annoy people, right?
Yeah, like keep your head down and work hard, and then you'll die, and then that's the end.
And no one remembers you, and
and maybe somebody will remember you, and it like it's when I look back on it, I found the benefits of that. But what surprised me was that not everybody is like me. So when I started putting myself out there on Facebook, I was like, oh, like people actually respond, and they're good people, and they literally don't know what they need.
Right, exactly.
That shocked me. I remember talking to you, Kevin, about the sales funnel, and I was so deep in the funnel that I was like, well, if people can't meet me where I'm at, then I don't want them as clients.
Right, exactly. I know.
So, but when I talked to you, I realized that like the cynicism and the tunnel vision started to fade away.
Right. And
I was like, oh, there are good people out there, and they just don't know what they need. And I literally just have to tell them what they need.
Right. Exactly. You know, and I love that you're talking about this, because I think like an evolution I've seen take place here is, like you said before, like you were expecting people to be like so far down in the funnel, like they were like ready to like hand over their credit card and go, right? But the thing is,
I'm so awesome. Everybody should just flock to
Yeah,
me.
I know. Exactly. And like, I think that that's a trap that a lot of people can fall into, myself included. It's like, we deliver such awesome results. Like, why don't you want to get started right now? Don't you see all these other people who love me? You know,
Yeah.
it's obviously a very egotistical way of living. But the thing is like, most people are not in that position. Most people need to be nurtured and like kind of, you know, guided, a little bit of hand holding and stuff like that. So, you know, I don't want to go too much into, because I feel like we can go way down a rabbit hole, like about Facebook marketing and stuff like that. But something that I kind of remember is like you and I, one of the first meetings we had after you started getting some real world feedback was like examining the DMs and conversations you were having with people too. And we went through like message by message, and I was kind of like, hey, like maybe do this. What do you think has changed there? Because it seems like you've gotten so comfortable talking to people.
I feel lucky that my personality is conducive to reaching out to strangers. I'm a very personable, outgoing person. That the ego that you were talking about, there is a negative side, but the positive side is that
yeah,
I don't get down for long because I just think I'm so awesome.
Right, exactly.
But as far as like, can you ask that question again? Because I lost.
Yeah, sure. So I kind of remember like the first time we were meeting, or one of the first times we were meeting, we were talking about DMs, and just to kind of like give you a little bit more background on what I'm kind of referring to, it's like I think that this is like a little bit longer tail form of setting appointments with people, like right, setting like consultations with people, and it's not like direct marketing where it's like, hey, you're looking for something, I'm here, let's set a consultation. It's more like you're putting like a message out there, you get people to kind of raise their hand about it. And then it's not even as simple as like, hey, let's set up a consultation. There's still some nurturing that needs to take place where you have that conversation, you let your personality shine through in the direct messages, and then you even move it to a phone call, and then you move it to an in-person consultation.
Yeah. And I found that this type of marketing where it's direct messages and they raise their hand, they're looking for somebody to care. I can't tell you how many times, even now that we started Google Ads and all that stuff, people have said, oh my gosh, thank you for getting back to me. I've contacted like 5 people and you're the only one. And I'm a very sensitive person, and I care very deeply about people. And so I think that shines through when I talk to people. And so when I direct message people, my take on this is I want them to know I care. And because the easy part is the consultation and telling them how I train dogs. That's the easy part. It's not I wouldn't call it hard, but the more people are looking for connection, they're looking for somebody to care, they're looking for somebody to listen. So I've stopped talking as much and I've shut my mouth and I just listen. And when you shut your mouth and listen, they almost sell themselves if your product is good enough.
And if you're asking the right questions. I totally agree with that. And I read a quote the other day, and I'm gonna butcher it, so I'll just paraphrase, but I think it was like somebody said the most successful people I know do way more listening than they do talking. And that's kind of what you're referring to here, right? Which is like, don't just go there and like try and force your agenda on people and be like, I have dog training, here's my offers, take it or leave it. Or like, why? And then you're like, why aren't they buying? Right. It's like, well, people want a connection. People treat their dogs like children nowadays. And so they want somebody who fully understands their problems. They can envision themselves working with for weeks at a time in most cases. And so yeah, I mean, why don't you talk a little bit about that? Like, how do you build connections with people?
So how do I build connections? I have it as a natural gift, so I'm lucky in that way. So this might not be for everybody, but how do I build connection? I take myself back to the moment where I called Sarah, because that's the moment that that client is in.
Right, exactly.
And I just remember that it wasn't even about the dog. I wasn't worried about the training. So when I connect with people, my therapy has helped me a lot, by the way.
Get in therapy, guys.
Get in therapy, guys, if you want to know how to sell.
Right, exactly.
But I have a lot of thoughts, so let me just start.
Go right ahead, yeah.
Them so that they may or may not make sense.
Sure.
Kevin, feel free to ask more questions. But I sit and I listen. That's always what I do first, and I don't interrupt at all.
Right.
And then the second thing I do is I validate. And I said, wow. I say something like, you're not, almost in every single call, I say, you're not alone. I let them know that they're not alone. Right. I have calls like this all the time, and that I'm here to help and I'm here to support. And so I let them know they're not alone. And then I also let them know that like they are doing a good job.
Right.
Because they are, with the skill set they have, with the knowledge they have.
Mm-hmm.
These are stressed out people looking for help. They're not like bad people who are abusing dogs.
No, not at all.
And so I validate. And so, because people just want to feel like, oh my gosh, like somebody hears me, they're listening to me. I am trying my best.
Mm-hmm.
So I listen, I validate, I tell them they're doing a good job. And then I ask permission every single call. I say, well, if you don't mind, I have a few thoughts. Is it okay if I ask these questions? So I always let them feel in charge. And then at least once during the call, because a lot of times people say things that are just totally off. They call their dog sweet when it's separation anxiety. They're mislabeling things.
Right.
And so I learned this from my therapist. And I always tell them, I'm going to challenge you a little bit. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that draws them in, because now we're in this together.
Right.
Now they're investing. Now They're like, ooh, a challenge. And there's something about the human race where we all enjoy a good challenge. Right.
And also like you're being polite about it too, right? You're like, hey, if you don't mind, I kind of want to give you a different way of thinking on this. Do you mind if I do that? Right. And they're like, who's going to say no to that? Absolutely not. Like, then why are you calling me? But I think that's a really good way to phrase it.
Yeah, I've never had anybody say no. And then obviously once we get through it can be whatever we're talking about, I'm going to challenge you. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I always let my clients know, because I'm searching for the right client as much as they're searching for the right dog trainer.
Yeah.
And so I always tell them, I say, just so you know, I push my clients, I challenge them, and I'm always going to be transparent with you. My ethical duty is to give you the right information. And so they know that not only am I on their side, but I'm going to be professional about it. And I'm going to call them on their bull crap. Right.
Yeah. Just saying these things out loud is super powerful. So I love the way that you sell. And the thing is, guys, like Bethany, you have a background in sales. Like you were in like solar, right? Yeah.
And not just sales, but resolution. Like I would call the people who are canceling and get them back online.
Right. So yeah, I mean, this is why like it's no shock to me that like you're killing it, and like this just took off as soon as you started, because you already had this skill set. But to everyone who's listening, if you're not having success right now, a place that I would tell you would encourage you to focus a lot of your efforts on, even though it seems like, hey, I need to be focused right now on dog training or whatever, it's like focus on learning the art of sales and building relationships and connecting with people, because there is no dog training business without sales and marketing done correctly first, right? And so I think that you do this extraordinarily well. And something that I love about the way that you sell is, you told me this one time, and I've been using this and saying this to a lot of people. You right now, I believe, have essentially, well, 3 programs, right? You have like your digital content, and then you have like your lower ticket, and then you have your higher ticket, right? Yeah. And what you say to people is kind of along the lines of like, this program is what I really recommend. And it's for people who really care about their dogs.
I'm so manipulative.
Yeah. But it's so good because you're framing it in a way to people that's more like, it's not like, hey, this is an off-leash program and you're going to learn a perfect recall and your dog's going to understand thresholds. And like, you're not using all this dog trainer jargon, which is like, hey,
everybody else is using and they've heard a million times.
Yeah. It's like, this is the program. Like if you want like a perfect family dog, this is it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want them to live their best, it's total guilt tripping, but because I'm a woman and I'm so sweet about it, I can get away with it.
Hey, at least you acknowledge it, right? Yeah, no, but I love that because I think that it's way more important to connect with people and kind of talk to them more so about stuff like that. And also, like you said before, you know, do you mind if I give you a different perspective? Or something that I think is really powerful as well is just kind of like letting people know that it's okay that you're in this situation, right? This is not like abnormal. You're not bad. You didn't do anything wrong. It's just, you don't know. I always use the example of like, hey, my transmission blows out and I'm driving down the highway. Like, I'm not just going to be able to pop the hood and start fixing it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I don't want to go and bring my car into the mechanic and have him like shame me and be like, why didn't you bring this in sooner? You know, like, what are you doing? Like,
or why didn't you change I've got that before. Why didn't you change the oil?
I was gonna say, like, you're not changing your oil. Yeah. Like, like your timing belt needed to be changed like a year ago, you idiot. Like, people don't want to hear that. You know what I mean? Like, they don't want to hear like, why didn't your dog's aggressive? Like, why didn't you start doing something about this sooner? It's not about where they are. It's not about where they've been. It's about meeting people where they are now. And most people, if you want to differentiate yourself from the pack, just look to be like, you know, people want to be kind of like told everything's going to be okay. So rubbing them on the back and just being like, hey, listen, we can figure this out. Like, it's such a powerful way to build a relationship, and more people are going to be buying from you if you come at it from that angle than being the super technical dog trainer and definitely not the person who's like harsh to them. Yeah.
I've had a few clients who called me and they told me about experiences with other dog trainers where they were like legitimately shamed on the phone.
Yeah.
And I was like, we all have bad days. I'm going to chalk it up to that they were having a bad day. That's what I chalk it up to. But I was like, wow, it just kind of shocked me.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've been in situations like that where like I've talked to somebody and you have to be careful not to become jaded and grow resentful of your clients. And, you know, because what can start happening is you're like, I don't want these clients. Like, I want people who are going, like, this is the thing I hear with every single dog trainer, right?
Well, I said it too.
Yeah. But people always say like, I want the people who do the work, right? Like that's another big thing that people say too. It's like, yeah, that's great. And we all want that. Like, I want people who are actually going to, you know, do what they're supposed to do, answer their phone calls, you know, like market on Facebook, return emails, like do what they're supposed to do on sales calls, whatever it may be. And so I know it's better when people follow through and do their homework. But what I would say is, if you have like a sample size of a lot of clients and they're not doing their homework or they're not doing what they're supposed to do, then maybe you're failing them as their teacher or their coach, and maybe your program isn't up to snuff. Maybe like something needs to be done better.
Yeah. And that's what you helped me learn, because I was definitely in that spot where I had been doing it a certain way for a certain period of time. And I was like, well, if they don't want to work with me, then they're not my type of client.
Right.
And you know what struck me so hard was like 2 years after Sarah trained my dog. She turns to me one day and she goes, Bethany, she's like, I almost didn't take you on as a client.
Oh, man. We wouldn't be sitting here today.
I literally would not be sitting here today.
Yeah.
So even if it's nothing else, like that struck me, and it still struck me that I was so grateful. It wasn't about, you know, like Sarah's business. It was, I was so grateful that somebody took a chance on me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's, and some people who walk away from my conversations, which I don't know why, they're still crazy because I'm the best.
How dare you?
How dare you walk away and not sign up?
Exactly.
But I know some people who have just decided, well, it's not for me. They've actually like referred people to me. And
Yeah.
so like, it's never, and this I learned from you, Kevin, is that it's never, there's really nothing that's a waste of time unless it's not working. Right.
Exactly.
And that was a huge eye opener to me, was that once I looked at my business like a 9-to-5 job, like I show up at 9, I work my butt off until 5, regardless of what I'm doing. I was like, oh my gosh, like there is no waste of time unless there's something that's not working for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, I want to get into numbers here in a second, because I want to toot your horn for you. But here's the thing is I wanted to say this. You just were hitting on the idea of like treating it like a 9-to-5 job. I've been saying this to a couple of people recently, and, I'm always cautious because there's different ways that people look at running a business, right? Like some people I think get into business because they're like, they've read the book, The 4-Hour Workweek, right? And they're like, I want to have financial freedom and time freedom and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that's like, not possible, but I think that getting into the business to expect that within like the first couple months is unrealistic, right?
Or
people
or 5 years.
Yeah, but people fall into the trap of like other people are doing this, and like so like I want that too, and those shouldn't be the intentions of getting into the business. What I would be saying is like if you're starting up a new business, it's going to take some blood, sweat, and tears to really get it going, right? And so what I found though with you that was really, really eye-opening and really amazing and really cool to watch was when we first started working together, like there was a lot of like, hey, I have to be very careful about this because I can't commit myself to too much. And we're still refining that because we went so far in the other direction. But, we had a conversation where you were doing more, you were not more work, you were working with more clients.
Yeah.
You were making way more money. And it energized you to spend more time in your business. So I think that a lot of people too are like looking to get out of their business as quickly as possible because like it's not fun to be in the business because it's such a struggle. Yeah.
But when you're getting paid what you're worth and then getting paid a lot of money, I am actually, we're still refining it in that process. But I am working more and I am pushing through a lot of things that were roadblocks for me because they're not roadblocks anymore if I'm getting compensated for what I'm worth.
Right. Exactly. And so now that's kind of like the thing that we're working out, right? And it's like, it's such a good place to be in that you have this luxury of making these decisions in your business, but it's only because of like the work that you've done up until now. So I just want everyone here to know that. So we've been working together since like you signed up like late March. So we really started going in April.
March 24th.
Right. And
not that I remember that.
Or not that that day is important or anything like that. But so we really got going in, I would say about April, right? That's when we started getting that like real world, like feedback and stuff like that. And so in the first 90 days, like I went through like your numbers that you sent me, and I love that you track your numbers. A lot of people don't know their numbers, and you should 100% know the revenue you're doing on a monthly basis. If you don't know that because you're scared to look at it, you have to face that head on and figure that out.
Which is really scary. It took me a while to face the numbers.
It's painful. You know what I mean? If things aren't going the way you want them to, but you have to look at that stuff. So the first month, I think you did about 10K, right?
11. Yeah.
11. Yeah. But who's counting? And then the second month was like, and second month was like 20, right? And then 20. The third month was about another, like you said at the end of the month, you were like, hey, I did 10.5 this month. And then you're like, oh, just add another $4,000. So you did 14.
Literally the last 2 days, like people who I had talked to the month before were like, I'm ready to sign up now. And so I made 14 that month.
So I think that you were close to like 45 or something like that, or 40K the first couple. So forgive me, I just did a promo post where I said 50. Maybe I'm lying a little bit, but
it was 45. But like, who's counting?
Who's counting? Yeah, it was $45,000. So what do you think has been the biggest difference? Because if you look at the previous month, 3 months to us starting together versus the 3 months after, you had 6K in those 3 months and then 45K. I
was making like 1,500 to 2,500 a month. Yeah.
And so like, what do you think has been if you had to like try and really drill down, what do you think has been like the main thing that's shifted in your business that's allowed you to kind of like open yourself up to be able to do this?
it had nothing to do with my programs or the dog training.
Right.
It had everything to do with I'm worth more. I deserve this, and I'm worth more than this. And that's a different journey for every person. For me, it was overcoming a crap ton of personal issues ever since I was born. It still is an ongoing journey. We almost canceled this call today because of it.
Right, exactly. Today almost didn't happen. Yeah, I have like people over like replacing pipes in the basement. Yeah, it's like, but I'm glad we did this today.
Yeah,
but so
for me it was,
yeah, go ahead.
For me it was, do you not just know what you're worth, because what your logical brain and what I call it the monkey brain, like not just knowing what you're worth, but do you feel what you're worth? Do you respect yourself? Are you afraid to are you afraid? If you're afraid to lose money, then you shouldn't be an entrepreneur.
Right.
Because what I mean by that is I've turned people down who are like, oh, that's too much for me. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I had to get over the fear of rejection. I had to respect myself, hold myself to a high standard, and not those things have been said over and over again. But my main thing was, do you know who you are? Do you know what your strengths are and how to access those?
Right.
Do you know what your weaknesses are, and are you okay with making friends with them? Because you'll never, my experience, right, and I'm open to change, is you're not gonna overcome your weakness in a second or years.
Yeah.
But can you make friends with it? Can you acknowledge what your weaknesses are? Can you acknowledge that they're there and say, hey, I see you, and then be creative and find a solution around that?
Right, exactly. And then just some more like really tactical things for people, because, I always like to keep these calls as grounded as possible, because I want people to take away things that they can start implementing in their business. And so, you were getting leads coming in, right? Like when we first started, like you would get some leads from the website and stuff like that and referrals. But, at the end of the day, I felt like one of the things that we were able to diagnose in your business was that there was still kind of like a slight lack of opportunity. Like there weren't just enough chances at the plate to try and get on base, right? So we started putting systems and processes in your business. We're like, hey, this is the lever that I can pull, and it gives me leads that I can sell to, right? And you knew that if, another big change we made was doing in-person consultations, right? Where you were going to people's homes. Like that wasn't really a thing until and I kind of had to sell you on that a little bit, because everyone's always hesitant. It's like, now you're telling me I got to get in the car and drive to somebody else. But that's another thing that differentiates you that most people will not do.
Yeah. Well, it's connection, and with the skill set that I have, I just have to get them in front of me.
Right.
Just get them in front of me, and then I'll take it from there. Right.
Exactly. I know. I feel the same way for you. It's like, I just knew that once we started working together, that if you could get in front of people, there's no reason they weren't going to sign up with you. And I feel that with a lot of people, if you can really let your personality shine, and if you get face-to-face with people, they're looking for dog training. Like there's no reason that why wouldn't they pick you? You're there. You know what I mean? Like you're a dog trainer, you're standing there, you're listening to their problems. Like, why wouldn't they work with you?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I loved the Facebook approach of I would post, but also learning what types of pictures people respond to.
Yep.
Because my experience was, show them me training a dog and how awesome that is, but people don't want to see that. So I posted with a human face and like light and fluffy.
Right. With like a call to action too.
Yes. And then also like the caption, what type of client are you trying to attract?
Right.
for me specifically, of course, I take easy peasy puppies. That's great, but that's not my bread and butter. My bread and butter is aggressive, anxious, dogs that have failed out of other programs, people who are at their wits' end. They've tried things that haven't worked.
Right. Yeah.
So it took us, and every time I post something, we usually go over it, Kevin, and we see which ones have gotten a lot of response, which ones kind of fizzled, and then we adjust accordingly. Yeah,
exactly. And so whatever, just so everyone knows, like what I mean by like having a call to action, like it doesn't need to be like call now, DM me. You can do stuff like that, right? But even it's like ask questions below, and like the whole thing we're doing is like starting conversation. So I also wanted to point this out that Bethany and I are running Google Ads now in her business, but we started out just doing coaching, and you went through our organic Facebook marketing course that all of our clients get access to. Yeah. And you just put that stuff to practice. And that was, I mean, those months we're talking about where you did $45,000, I'm pretty sure we
didn't have Google Ads.
We didn't have Google Ads running. So you did 45K in your business without spending a cent on ads. So just so
the
everyone
reason
knows,
we're doing Google Ads is to make life easier, not because we legitimately needed to.
Yeah. And that's not to say that there's not like a value in Google Ads, of course. I mean, it's just like, that's just the place that we were at the time, or where that was the lead generation system that we're using. We still use that, but Google Ads are just, a luxury at this point where you can like have people just call you. You don't need to do all the posting and stuff like that. But just to put it in context for people, like we're not talking about like, 8 hours a day of being on Facebook and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's not that time intensive in the grand scheme of things. And the payoff is just massive.
Yeah. It's been fantastic.
Awesome. I love to hear that. Yeah. I mean, and so like, you kind of have to have, certain people are going to be really good at it from the get-go. I think you're one of those people because you had the personality where you said to me the other day, you're like, I like being on camera. Like I like being in front of people. And some people don't feel that way. And so like, it's a skill though. And everything in life, you can get good at it. And when you get good at it, you'll probably enjoy doing it more than when you weren't good at it.
Well, and there's a need for you. And when I say you, I mean everybody who's watching. Like I don't click with some people because I'm too overwhelming. So I think, and I've been learning that like there's a need for you specifically. You are going to specifically relate to somebody out there. So
yeah, it's the age old thing, right? That like all of our moms tell us, right? Or like your parents or someone in our family, it's like, you're the only you out there, right? So like be yourself. And like, we hear that growing up, and it's like, it just seems like a cheesy slogan to wear on a t-shirt or something like that. But it's like, it is so true. Like it's the only thing you want, the biggest differentiator in your business. It's you. And not everyone, like get over the fact that like, not everyone's going to want to work with you. Some people may not like you, honestly, but some people are not going to like other trainers and they love you. And that's the benefit. So it's just about meeting with enough people where you're going to find that pool where people are going to gravitate towards you and want to work with you. Yeah.
And I found a nice outlet for my narcissistic and egotistical tendencies. It's my business.
Exactly. Because then you don't have to like, then you don't have to carry it into like other relationships, right? It can just be all let out in your business. Yeah. It's, you said this before, it's a really good, it's a fine line. It's something you have to balance, right? Like your ego is something that's going to be like, allow you to be like, I can do that. Like I can make $20,000 a month in my business. I can run that. I can do all that. Right. So the thing is we're just laughing because that's kind of an inside joke, but but the thing is you have to keep it in check, right? And just to go back to something we were talking about before, don't take anybody for granted. Don't take it for granted that anyone should just sign up with you, right? Like how great I am. We're not owed anything. We need to win these people over. That's the approach I take with all of my clients. Like I need to sell them on the reason that they should be working with me and not somebody else.
Yeah. And I think the biggest benefit I got from working with you was to be completely honest, you didn't tell me anything that I hadn't heard before, but you strike a nice balance between encouragement and connection. Like you were talking about patting me on the back and being like, this is, you're not the only one.
Yeah.
but also like pushing me and being like, Bethany, I know you've been doing it this way for like 5 years, but like you're gonna have to try this.
Right.
And you strike a nice balance between just and me getting off the call with you and being like, Kevin doesn't know what he's talking about, but fine. I'll do it.
I'll do it to show him it doesn't work.
I'll do it to show him it doesn't work. And then it works. And then I'm like, hey, guess what? It worked.
Yeah, we've all been there, you know, like I've been in positions where I'm like, this isn't going to work or whatever, but that's something that is a really, really important skill set, and something that I try and adopt in my life is like, anytime I'm doing something or working with somebody and like coaching, or I'm taking a program or a course or something like that, I want people to be as brutally honest with me, because I just want to I want to try and be as receptive as I can. And there's a reason why I'm here looking for help. So if you're looking for help, like, be receptive, be coachable. And I'm personally like, want people to rip me apart. Like, if I'm doing something really wrong, like, tell me, because I don't want to sit here and go like, prove how like what. Money, yeah.
If you're paying them money, you're literally paying, and they don't, it's not respectful if they're taking your money and they're not ripping you apart.
Right, exactly. Like, they owe that to you. So like, if someone just is a yes person, right, and saying like, yeah, you're doing great, just keep doing, like, no, like, if something's going wrong here, someone's got to tell you like, hey, there's a better way of doing this.
Yeah.
So listen, I don't want to keep you all day. We could just keep going on and on, but let me ask you this. Like, this is what I always kind of like to close these calls with. To somebody who's in your position, even say like 3 months ago, like, what do you think back to where you were? That's a really powerful thing. Like you said, you think back to where you were when you first spoke to Sarah. Think of like where you were in that moment and that period of your life. And what is some advice that you would give to people who are now where you were then?
The advice, I have a lot of thoughts. I'm just trying to be accurate with my words. There's two dimensions to this. There's you as the business owner, your emotional, spiritual, state. And then there's like your actions, right? What you actually do. So speaking from the emotionals, I'm a very emotion-based person. Get some therapy.
Let's start there. Yeah.
Start there. I mean, I'm kind of joking.
But hold on, like, you're actually like not fully joking. And the point is like, I just want to say this. It kind of goes back to your mindset, right? Because that's really what you're overall talking about. And you're going to find yourself, if you don't have the right mindset and putting yourself in a position to succeed, you're going to be banging your head up against the wall for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whatever that looks like, if it's the entrepreneur books that you like to listen to on Audible, if it's a therapist, if it's whatever works for you, even the small things, start focusing on your mindset and you and valuing yourself.
Right.
That's from the emotional side. From like, what do you actually do? You got to get dirty, got to get your hands in there. You got to just do it. And you got to hire somebody like Kevin or Kevin. And you need somebody to push you. You need somebody to push you, and you need to work hard, and you need to just do it. And if you get angry about it, channel that anger into doing it. Right.
Exactly. And don't, Rome wasn't built in a day. So if you're going from like a 0 and you're trying to go to 100, going back to what we were talking about, like 9 to 5, right? Like, if you haven't done 9 to 5 in a long time, it can be kind of exhausting, but it gets easier over time, and the more momentum you build in the business, the more time you're going to want to spend in the business. So, but with that being said, I do just want to say this. If you guys are running a business, right? If you're full-time in your business and you're not dedicating at least an hour a day to trying to find new clients when you don't have clients, that's the first place you need to start. And an hour should be the bare minimum, right? Like, there's so many different ways to do it. Facebook, getting outside with a sign that says free dog training and your dog, right? Like, could be Google, setting up Google ads, Facebook ads, right? Like, there's so many different ways to do it. But if you don't have clients right now, I know this seems super obvious, and this to people that already have like thriving dog training businesses, you're probably going to be sitting here going like, what, this is the most basic stuff. But I just speak to dog trainers on a daily basis and people that are really struggling. And the number one thing that I see them not doing is not blocking out time to find clients, and they're waiting for clients to come to them. And that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Well, listen, I am so thankful that you took the time to do this with me today. I hope that everyone got a ton of value out of this. So Bethany, is there anything that you want to plug or anything that you want to say before we finish up here today?
You know, I'm not that genius of a person, so no, there's nothing I could say that they haven't already heard.
Yeah. Well, listen, you guys, I'm sure Bethany would be like happy if you guys wanted to like follow her journey and stuff like that on Facebook. You can see some really awesome content on there, see what she is doing and what's working for her.
Maybe authentic content,
yes.
Not awesome content.
Yeah. But I think we're going to wrap it up from here. So Bethany, I'm so grateful for you doing this today. Thank you so much. And we'll have to do this again in a couple months, do another check-in. Okay.
Sounds good.